Hello everyone, this is Dr. Looney coming to you again with another video. Today we'll be talking about parallel lines cut by a transversal. This is a review, so I'm going to move pretty quickly through this. We're not going to talk about all the angles you can create with parallel lines cut by a transverse. So the only ones that we talk about, that's the only one that I'm going to quiz you over. All right, so let's look at this example. Now, when you see these arrowheads on the lines, that means these two lines are parallel, and this is our transversal line. And if you can see here, we have angles inside of the two parallel lines. So this angle here is 70 degrees, and this angle here is 7x minus 7 degrees. And so since they're inside the parallel lines and on opposite sides of the transversal, they're going to be alternate interior angles. And so we know that alternate interior angles are going to be congruent. So that means that we can set up an equation and find the value of x. And so that's what we're going to do over here. We're going to find the value of x. And so we set the two equations up. We know that 7x minus 7 is going to be equal to 70 degrees, and so now we can add 7 to both sides because this is a negative. To undo a negative, we need to add. So that gives us 7x is equal to 77, and the last thing that we need to do to find the value of x is divide both sides by 7, and so that gives us x is equal to 11, and of course if you plug this back in, you have 7 times 11, which is 77. Minus 7 gives us 70, so these two angles are congruent. All right, so that's the first example, pretty straightforward. And remember, this was alternate interior angles, and they are congruent. And so let's go to the next example. Bear with me here, sorry about that. All right, so in this case, we know the two lines are parallel. We have the two arrow heads on there, so that's to indicate that these two lines are going to be parallel. And so I made one mistake, so I'm going to correct that. This x plus 4 should be here, not inside of the parallel line, so I apologize about that. So the x plus 4. So since the angles are outside the parallel lines, we know they're going to be exterior angles, and they are on opposite sides of the transversal line. So they're going to be alternate exterior angles, and those angles are going to be congruent as well. So we can set up our equation. We know that we want to find the value of x, so we know that x plus 4 is equal to negative 2 plus 10x. And remember, I don't know if you remember this, but if you have variables on both sides, my suggestion is always to move the one that has the smallest coefficient. So I'm going to subtract 8x from both sides. So if I subtract 8x, I'm still left with this 4, and I'm not going to do anything to the negative 2, so I can just bring that down. So I have 10 minus 8x, and so that's going to give me 2x. And then now the next step that I'm going to do is, because I want to get x by itself, so I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So that's going to give me 6, and I'm not going to do anything with this 2x, but bring it down. So that gives me 2x is equal to 6, and then I need to divide both sides by 2, so x is going to be equal to 3. And we're done with example number 2. Remember, these angles were alternate exterior, and they're going to be congruent angles. All right, so let's go to the next example here. So the next example, we actually have corresponding angles, so I didn't put the arrowheads on here, so let me just go ahead and do that because the lines do have to be parallel in order to use these properties that we're using. So these two lines are parallel to each other, and they're cut by this transversal line. And so we know that our corresponding angles are going to be congruent as well. And so now we're going to find the value of x. So we just have to set the two equations equal to each other. So we have, the two expressions equal to each other. So we have 17x minus 4 is equal to 14x plus 5. And now we're going to move the one with the smallest coefficient. So that's 14x. So I'm going to, since it's a positive 14x, I'm going to subtract 14x from both sides. So that gives me 3x. Don't have to do anything with the negative 4 right now, so I just bring down the 5. So I have 3x minus 4 is equal to 5, and I need to add 4 to both sides. So that gives me 3x is equal to 9, and to get the value of x, I just need to divide both sides by 3. And so x is going to be equal to 3. These are corresponding angles. Because they're in the same location. This is under a parallel line, and this is located under a parallel line as well. So they do correspond. All right, and so let's look at I think this is the last example. Yeah, so this is the last example. All right, so on the last example, we have same side interior angles. And since we have same side interior angles, you see the arrowhead here. These are going to mean that these two lines are parallel, and then we have our transversal line. So same side means that they're on the same side of the transversal line, so it's on the left-hand side. And interior means they're inside the parallel lines. And so those angles are going to be supplementary. So that just means they add up to be 180 degrees. So we just need to set up an equation to find x. When I add these two angles up, they have to equal 180. So that's where I get x plus 60 plus x plus 20. When I add them together, they have to be 180. That's what supplementary means. And so how many x's do I have? I have 2 x's, so that gives me 2x. 60 plus 20 is 80, so I get 2x plus 80 is equal to 180. And I need to subtract 80 from both sides. And so that gives me 2x is equal to 100. Lastly, I need to divide both sides by 2, so x is equal to 50. So my value for x is going to be 50. And remember, these properties only work when you have parallel lines cut by a transversal. If there is no indication that the lines are parallel, you will not be able to use these properties. So make sure that you are using the properties when the lines are parallel cut by a transversal. Hopefully this video was helpful to you. You have 4 examples, so you know you're going to have 4 problems similar to these examples for the quiz. So if you understand these examples, then you'll definitely make 100 on the quiz. If you have any questions, please email me. And that is all that I have for this week. You have a great day.